the Minnesota Timberwolves could look drastically different next season. Following their playoff exit, this is a team with a lot of decisions to make for their roster. And with new ownership leading the helm, just about anything is in play for this team. Let's break it down. First of all, you've got two player options in Naz Reid and Julius Randle. Naz Reid for 15 million, Julius Randle for 30.9. I'll start off here with Naz Reid. I feel pretty confident that he's going to come back to Minnesota. Now, is it going to be without player option? Probably not. This is someone who I could easily see making $20 million plus for every contribution that he makes. But I don't think that he's going to leave Minnesota to do so. This is someone who, after Game 5 in a post-game interview, said this, and I quote, "I've been here 6 years. I don't plan on doing anything differently. Hopefully it's the same way, same feeling on the other side." End quote. And yes, when you first hear the statement, maybe it can kind of sound like the obvious. Okay, he's not going to say that he's unhappy with the situation. I believe it coming from Naz Reid, though. Because yes, sometimes you have a situation where a star, they really want to hide their discontent, so that way they don't burn a bridge, even if they do lose. But with Naz Reid, this is someone who the Timberwolves took a fire on. He went undrafted, and he was talented coming out of college. But there were especially questions about his weight and how that would impact his ability to play at the highest level. Timberwolves took a chance on him, and over the years, Naz Reid has really developed into a homegrown talent and an incredible player for Minnesota. And with that, when you've got this player that 29 other teams did not want to give a chance, when you've got this player that you were able to watch develop and grow and come to their own, there's a connection there. There's a connection there with the organization. There's a connection with the fans. The fans love Naz Reid. You ask any Minnesota fan, they'll tell you that 1,000 times over. And if you're the player, you feel that too. Every time you go in the Target Center, every time you're even at an away game and a fan brought a Naz Reid towel, given the connection there, I would be surprised if Naz Reid does not come back to Minnesota. On what kind of contract it's going to be, we're yet to see. I don't think it's going to be that player option, though. The other player with a player option, though, there's a little bit less confidence in where he lands. That is, of course, Julius Randle. Now, Randle is someone who, for the past year, has been an incredible fit with Minnesota, and that has in large part been to his effort and commitment to being the best player, most impactful basketball player that he can be. Because you look back to his tenure with the New York Knicks, there were times his production was amazing. He is a two-time All-NBA member, but it never quite felt like this was the guy that was going to take your team to the next level as the first option. And of course, ultimately, Jalen Brunson would come in and be that first option, leaving Julius Randle to be more secondary. And then, of course, he was moved to Minnesota in that trade for Karl Anthony Towns. And even whilst he was with the Knicks as the secondary option, he still struggled come playoff time with his efficiency. And so now he goes to this new team and now is left to fill the void of Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. And for the Timberwolves, Cat had never been known as a playoff overachiever by any stretch of the imagination. And it felt like that trend could very well continue with Randall based off what had been seen with him in the past. Randall was known for being a pretty talented player, but not always of the highest basketball IQ. Sometimes he doesn't make the best plays. But for Minnesota this year, I was really impressed by what I saw from Julius Randle. He was really bought into his role, and you could see that in the way that he played. His scoring numbers are as low as they have been since 2017, 2018. But in spite of that, it seemed like his contributions to winning were as great as they've ever been, if not better. And I think if you're looking around the league, other teams have realized that as well, because for a long time, Julius Randle had a little bit of a reputation of being this playoff dropper. This guy who is pretty much the opposite of a plug and play player, in which you bring him in, that's a drastic change to your offense, and he's not always going to be making the right decisions. But this year has been a complete flip of some of the perceptions of Julius Randle. And for the most part, he looked really, really good for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So with that, I think you could tell, especially when they were winning, that Randle was having a great time over in Minnesota. However, the option is entirely his to choose if he wants to stay or if he wants to go. And with that, he'd be a fool not to recognize that other teams have probably seen what he did this past year and been really impressed and feel as though he could be very, very valuable to them. So if Julius Randle feels that he could get even more money in free agency, he could very well go that route. And so with that, there's a lot more uncertainty in regards to his status as opposed to Naz Reid. He's been an incredible fit for the Timberwolves, sure, but will they be able to keep him? Now, on the other side, the Timberwolves also have two team options in Josh Minott and Luka Garza. I think Josh is gone. He's been on the team for 3 years now and has never really got any proper, consistent amount of playing time. As for Luka Garza, I think there's a little bit more of a chance that he stays, especially if Julius Randle is gone. Because this is a very sound offensive big man. And if you need a deeper reserve beyond Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Rob Dillingham, even Terrence Shannon Jr., Luka Garza could probably slot in there. Not as someone that you're going to trust a whole ton, but as maybe a little bit of an offensive spark plug, because at times Nickeil has struggled with his offense, been inconsistent, especially if Naz Reid goes to the starting lineup, in of course the scenario of the absence of Julius Randle, then Garza could not necessarily fill that role, but make the void on offense a little bit less noticeable off of your bench. With the aforementioned Nickeil Alexander-Walker, though, there's no guarantee that he's coming back either. This is the final year of his contract, and this is someone who at times, especially on offense in the playoffs, did not have the best moments. He had a couple games, like game 4 against the Thunder, where he was really, really impressive, but his shooting at times was inconsistent, and with that, it leaves his status as a free agent a little bit up in the air in regards to his value contractually. Because if you look at what he did in the regular season for this team and in years past, Nikhil has been really, really good for them. He is a very good defender, one of the most underrated in the league for my money. In the last 3 years, from beyond the arc, he has shot 38.1% or above. This 3-and-D guy off the bench getting big rotational minutes from Minnesota, that's an archetype that a lot of teams could use. But with this past postseason, do they take into account the times where Nikhil was struggling to put the ball in the basket? How much does that matter relative to what he gave this team in past regular seasons? I'm not sure what the money looks like for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but I do know he's a valuable piece for any team that gets him, and Minnesota probably wants him back. This is someone that, say for instance, with Mike Conley, we don't know how long he's going to be around in the league anymore. He does still have another year under his contract, but with Mike Conley, long term, you don't really know that he's going to be there. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is not at all your full-time answer at point guard, but there were moments in the postseason a couple years ago where he had to run point, and he did pretty solid. This is someone that you can trust as a little bit of an on-ball creator to at least bring the ball up the court. And so that's another aspect of his game. Nikhil is very valuable. I think Minnesota absolutely wants him back, but it's all about the money for him. Because I bet, especially when you look at his archetype, what he's done in the past couple regular seasons, he can make more than $4 million like he's making right now. And so now we've looked at some contracts, and now we truly ask the question, what's this team going to look like next year? And there's a lot of uncertainty around that. Mike Conley, is he going to come back? Or is he going to retire? I think that this team is going to have to see a lot more youth step up, though. Terrence Shannon Jr., based off what we saw from him in the postseason, should probably get a lot more minutes and now a proper place in the rotation. Rob Dillingham is, of course, very offensively skilled. I think, especially if Mike Conley's career is winding down a little bit here, if you give him just a little bit less responsibility, it might be worth trying something out with Dillingham as well as Terrence Shannon Jr. And that's not to say that Mike Conley is invaluable or not valuable, because he absolutely is. And the numbers don't do justice at all. When he was on the court versus when he was off the court, it made a major, major difference. But just get some reps for the young guys, because he's not going to be here forever. And if Julius Randle is gone, Naz Reid could very well be your starting power forward. But there's one guy, one part of the equation that we have yet to mention, that is Kevin Durant. And it's no secret that he wants out of his current situation with the Phoenix Suns. And one place that has been brought up in conversations surrounding KD has been Minnesota. Of course, you have the connection there with Anthony Edwards. This is someone who not only Anthony Edwards kind of came to idolize and love KD's game, but also in the previous postseason, the Timberwolves had, of course, matched up the Phoenix Suns. And for Anthony Edwards, he used that connection that he felt to KD to not just coast by and be super friendly, but he brought a competitive fire to it. and actively tried to beat Kevin Durant because this is someone that he came to idolize. And with that competitive spark, I think that's something that could be appealing to Kevin Durant in the sense of this is someone who has already stated that he is all about his legacy. And it would be pretty good for your legacy if you might be the missing piece for this Minnesota team. And you can bring them a championship with a player alongside you that you had gotten to mentor as well. Whatever the case may be, Minnesota is definitely going to need to make some changes this offseason. Because this team, as is constructed, is very, very good. But as we just saw, they're not quite good enough to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Thunder are going to be around for a long time. So you have to do something to counter that. Because for a long time, Denver, they were the juggernauts of the West for a couple of years. And Minnesota, they responded to that. They built this lineup of Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns when he was there, now Gobert and Julius Randle and Naz Reid. With all these bigs with size to be able to match up with Denver and do all that you can to stop them. But now OKC, they're the juggernauts in the West with no signs of slowing down. And with that, there's probably going to be a swing coming from Minnesota this offseason. That could well be Kevin Durant. And there's going to be a focus on the youth now because Mike Conley's not going to be here forever. And Terrence Shannon Jr. in his limited time looked pretty good. This Minnesota Timberwolves team could look very, very different going into next year. Whether it's the roster itself or just different responsibilities for the guys, changes need to be made, and with new ownership, they will almost certainly be made.